Well, here we are, it's time for the next monthly Q&A, and it's really insane to say this, but it's already July. I know I was talking about the passage of time at the beginning of the last one in June, but seriously, it's July, we're past the halfway point of the year, it's just... I don't even know, man. Time is just, it's not even a thing anymore, you know what I mean? Anyway, as always, if you want to be featured in the next one, either A, join the Discord server, because I let you guys know literally immediately as soon as anything is happening over there, or B, you can just keep your eyes posted over on the community tab, because I also always end up posting up over there being like, hey, I'm about to do a Q&A, so leave your questions here and all that. First things first, as always, we'll kick things off with the Discord questions, and the first one is coming from Raiden Revengeance, who asks, well, rather just kind of like blatantly says, opinions on Breaking Bad? And honestly, I love Breaking Bad. I remember back in like, oh man, this was like sometime in high school, me and my one buddy back home in Pennsylvania, you know, me and him used to always hang out. I used to always go to his house, and yeah, I remember me and him just kind of like chilling, because like, you know, he had like, I don't even know how to explain his setup necessarily, but like his bed was like kind of part of his setup. Like his bed was like half of his room, but his bed was like absolutely massive. So he'd sit on like one edge of the bed, and I'd sit on like, you know, the other edge of the bed, just because like you know, we were homies, you know, you don't want to be getting too close with the homies in the bed now, but you know, he'd be sitting on his side, I'd be sitting on my side, you know, we each have like a tub of snackies and drinks, and then he had his TV that was like connected to the edge of his bed kinda, so we just kind of sit there binging Breaking Bad. And man, I have so many fond memories of just watching that show. But furthermore, I absolutely love Breaking Bad. If you guys have not watched that show before, I highly recommend watching both that as well as the El Camino. How are you supposed to pronounce that? El Camino or whatever, the movie that came out after the fact that's like, you know, like connected to it. The next question comes from Human, who asks, what you think about the Elden Ring DLC if you've gotten to it? So I have indeed gotten to it, and you know, it was good, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It was more Elden Ring, and I don't mean to sound reductive when I say that. It literally, I mean, it's just, I don't know how else to describe it without getting into spoiler territory, because it's so fresh and new, obviously. One thing I will say that is definitely not as hard as what everybody was saying online, right? Like, everybody online's been like, oh, you know, this is so tough, and it was literally getting review bombed on Steam. Like, it dropped down to, like, mixed reviews at one point. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, yeah, I got through Deathless. Of course, no, it did take me a couple of tries on the bosses, but honestly, as long as you run around the world and you get yourself buffed up enough to deal with all the bosses and enemies, it's really not that bad. Because one of the main things with the DLC is obviously it's not really as dependent on your levels as it is on exploration and finding stuff in the world to actually get yourself better equipped to deal with the enemies, which honestly, considering that Elden Ring is an open world game and people have had like over 2 years to get buffed up and level up at this point, I really think that that probably was the best way to go about balancing things, or just making sure that nobody was going into it overpowered, or just ensuring that everybody could go in on kind of like a level playing field. I will say there was two bosses in particular that, you know, they definitely took me quite a couple of attempts. The first one obviously being the final boss, it took me a couple of attempts to kind of like, you know, learn his moveset and everything. But the other one being, I don't know how to say it without spoiling things, but I'll just say this much and will probably be enough for people to understand what I'm talking about. It's the one boss that bears some resemblance to another boss that was in the game previously, specifically when it comes to the hair color, and fighting them becomes a bit of a light show. Those two bosses in particular kind of had me going like, alright, yeah, I'm gonna need a minute to really learn this one's moveset, but honestly, in the end of it all, you have so many Estus flasks in Elden Ring that, I'm sorry, flats of cerulean tear, to where it's not, you know, like, obviously you still need to be good at the game, right? Like, you need to be able to dodge and know your healing windows, but I don't know, I feel like it is really easy to still just kind of like heal through stuff in the game. Obviously that's your choice, and you could always like kind of impose some sort of like self-restrictive challenge to where it's like, alright, I can only use this many flasks, or I'm not gonna go out and collect all the upgrades for the flasks, so then it's not as powerful, or so I don't have as many. But still, there was a lot of times where I was like, alright, you know, I still had to learn the boss, but I still feel like there was plenty of times where I was able to just be like, alright, I'm gonna mash square real quick, just get the health bar back up, and I'll just keep hacking until I make it. Overall, though, in terms of like DLCs, definitely a 10 out of 10. It was phenomenal. Also, I just want to clear the air on some things real quick. So I know back in the day when I was making Elden Ring videos, I became rather needlessly whiny and critical about the game, and if I'm going to be completely honest, in retrospect, and after going back to the game, it never actually had anything to do with the game itself. I was just burnt out on the overly toxic community that was just flooding my comment section and server and other things at the time, because, you know, as much as I love the Souls community, for as many amazing and wholesome people that there are in that community, there's also quite a number of stinkers, and those stinkers were just seriously destroying the game for me. Like, it was just, it's so drained. Honestly, that goes for a lot of games for me, though. Like, anytime that I start interacting with the online community for those games, I just start to get drained, because one, I hate people, but two, like, everybody's just so, online nowadays, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's just so toxic and so meta and just so, The only reason that I bring that up is because, one, I just wanted to clear the air on that, but two, it also comes up in a question later on that I also wanted to address. The next question comes from What the Flip Man, who says, I have two. The first one being, if video games never existed, how would you spend your time? I'd still be creating YouTube videos. I'd probably just watch a lot more anime than I already do. I'd probably spend more time, like, drawing and, you know, just reading in general, like, whether that be manga, comic books, or just full-on novels. I'd probably listen to a lot more music. I'd probably still be creating music, because I used to create a lot of music back in the day, and to this day, I still do. I don't do it as frequently or as much as I used to. I'd probably also watch some more movies and TV shows and stuff like that, because I don't do that a whole lot nowadays. I still do watch movies when it's something where it's like, alright, you know, it's a superhero movie, it's a Star Wars movie, or it's just something I really want to see. Then, you know, I go ahead and watch those as soon as I can after they release. Like the Super Mario movie, for example, I didn't go see it in theaters just because, you know, movie theaters give me anxiety. I'm not sure why, but every time I sit in a movie theater, I just get really bad panic attacks. So as soon as that hit Peacock, for example, I would ever stream that. It was a phenomenal movie, one of my favorite movies from last year. But otherwise, if video games never existed, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things where I'd still be a hermit. I'd just be doing other things that I already do with my time, except I'd just be doing those things more frequently. And then his other question is, what is one video game series that you want to see another new installment of? I'm just gonna say Resistance right off the rip. As soon as I read that question, there was a lot that came to mind. Like, I had to go to, like, each of the consoles, you know what I mean? Like, when I think of Nintendo, the first thing comes to mind, Kid Icarus. We haven't had a game since Uprising on the 3DS, so, like, we are long overdue for a Kid Icarus game. Kid Icarus has continued to show up in Smash Bros, yet nothing there. Also, Ice Climber, I mean, again, Ice Climber's been in Smash Bros, but where's the new Ice Climber game? Then I look at Xbox, and I mean, like, Halo Infinite just came out a couple of years ago, but I do feel like it's getting to that point where I don't necessarily need a new Halo game. I would really like a new Halo game, but I feel like it would be cool if we could kind of start moving things, maybe do a bit of, I know Infinite in itself was already not necessarily a reboot or like a soft reboot even by any means, but I mean, it was kind of in a sense, right? They were really like switching up the formula, and while the story was still kind of continuing on with the overall lore of Halo, it was definitely kind of diverging from that classic Halo formula with the open world stuff and the villains and just kind of, you know, just everything in general. I'm trying to be careful here, you know, just skirting around spoilers, as well as them switching up the formula for the multiplayer, going from the classic Halo multiplayer formula to more of the live service thing, which obviously really didn't pan out because, let's be honest, live service games are just draining and they suck. I can't stand that carrot on a stick mentality that live service games kind of pull you into. I can't stand it. 99% of my time now, actually no, it's a lie. I still do play a lot of Call of Duty. Okay, I'll say like 80% of my time nowadays is spent playing single player games, whether that be retro games or newer games. It's just, I gravitate towards single player games nowadays just because multiplayer games, it's mainly the live service thing. You know, I do still enjoy multiplayer games. However, I don't even play multiplayer games multiplayer anymore. I play multiplayer games solo, so like Left 4 Dead. Whenever I play that game, I play it solo still, but blast with it. Call of Duty, I still play it solo. It's just the live serviceness, you know, it's just that stuff, it gets to be too much with all the different battle passes and limited time events and the FOMO. It's just like, I'm not getting sucked into it. But anyway, I'm going completely off track. So yeah, Kid Icarus, when it comes to like Nintendo and then Xbox, I would like to see a new Halo, maybe just, you know, kind of come out at some point. But the thing is with Xbox, right? Because there's a lot of games that I could have said originally, like, but it's weird because they own a lot of IPs now because they've been making so many acquisitions. So it's like, okay, when I think of Xbox games, does that also include Bethesda since they own Bethesda? Technically, yes. So in that case, yeah, I'd love to see a new Fallout because we haven't had one since Fallout. I'm gonna say Fallout 4. Fallout 76 exists, and while it is a really fun game, you know, that's more of like a multiplayer spin-off game. Don't worry, I'm sure there was a bunch of people watching like, oh no, he's about to go on a huge Fallout 76 rant. No, so many other YouTubers have done that, and honestly, I never had an issue with Fallout 76. I love that game. It's just when it comes to like the mainline Fallout games, I mean, sure, if they want to include it as a mainline game, whatever, but in my mind, like the last true, we'll say, Fallout entry would have been like Fallout 4, because again, I'm just more of a single-player guy. I did put a lot of time into 76, but I'm itching for that new single-player Fallout experience. It would be really cool if Microsoft could go back and maybe revisit some of their old IPs as well, like Blinx the Time Sweeper. Can we please get a new Blinx game? Right now, I'm just kind of like looking up and down the shelf of like all the Xbox games that I have between like original Xbox and Xbox 360. Like Xbox 360 also had a bunch of just like exclusive JRPGs that you just wouldn't see nowadays, like Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey, and stuff like that. I would have said things like, you know, Perfect Dark Ark, even though that's technically more of like a rare thing since Microsoft owns them, but you know, we already know we're getting a new Perfect Dark. We just saw gameplay of that. Same thing with Fable. Fable's one I would have pointed to immediately, but again, we already know a new one's coming out for that. So I feel like Microsoft's doing a good job of going back and cleaning up some of those IPs in terms of just giving them new entries and actually keeping them alive. However, there's still many exclusives from back in the day that I would like to see them return to. And again, one of the main ones that comes to my mind is definitely Blinks. And then on the PlayStation side of things, I already mentioned a few, but yeah, you know, just bringing back some of their old IPs as well, like Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, Killzone, Resistance. And then there's other games I could point to that are more just like, you know, cross-platform, that's on all, like everything, like, you know, PC and all the consoles like Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. Prototype. The Prototype games were so cool during the 7th generation. There was only ever 2 of them that released, but it was essentially just like superheroes, but not superheroes, and it was just... If you've never played Prototype, they're pretty cheap to pick up nowadays, whether you pick them up they're always going on sale digitally for like less than $5, and even physical copies are really cheap, so... Prototype, I love to see a new game in that series. We're also long overdue for a new Infamous game. We had Second Son around the time that the PS4 launched, as well as the First Light standalone DLC, but otherwise it's kind of been quiet on that front as well. And then you got other obvious ones you could point to, like the Burnout series, for example. We are long overdue for a new Burnout game, but you know, I could go on for ages and ages. I'll stop myself there. Needless to say, there's a lot of video game series that haven't gotten an installment in a while that I would love to see make a comeback in somehow, whether that be a remake, remaster, just a simple port to the new systems. I'm of the belief that games never truly need remakes or remasters. You know, they're pieces of art. They're perfect the way they are. But if companies want to go ahead and put the money into that and say port it or remaster it to bring it to new systems, I mean, I'm not complaining. I'll buy it again. Or whether it be full-on new sequels, I just want to see the IPs come back in some way. Now moving over to the YouTube comment section. The first one coming from Double T Game Hustle, who asks, what would you do if YouTube wasn't a thing? All the time that I just wouldn't be spending on YouTube at that point, I just, you know, spend playing even more video games. The next question comes from Cheese20044, who asks, do you like Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad more? I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen as much of Better Call Saul. I've only seen clips or, you know, here and there, so I'm gonna have to say Breaking Bad just because I'm not familiar with Better Call Saul. That's the thing with me, the older I've gotten, I'm just not much of a TV guy anymore. It's just too much of a time commitment. Series are really long. I'll watch shorter series that come out, like, you know, like the Fallout series, for example, or the Last of Us show that came out, just because, you know, it's only a couple of episodes, and for some reason, I'm different with, like, anime and childhood cartoons. Like, I have no problem going back and binging, like, all of, like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon from 2003, or, like, SpongeBob, or, you know, going back and, like, binging all of Dragon Ball, literally, like, all 3 of the different shows. I mean, if you want to throw GT in there, then 4 as well, but typically when I binge Dragon Ball, I go Dragon Ball, Z, and then Super, and then GT if... You know, if I feel like it. It's a good anime, but obviously it isn't canon, so I tend to just go the original and then Z and then Super. The next question comes from Zabuza.m, who asks, how do you go about picking what game to play next after finishing one? See, it's funny, I've had people ask me this before, because some people, I guess, you know, actually struggle with like, oh, what do I play next? But for me, I don't know, it's just like, I always just know what I'm gonna play next. It's really weird, I don't know, my brain's just kind of like, okay, I know what I want to play next, even though I have like hundreds of games, if not thousands of games that I want to get to. It's just like, I can always pinpoint one in my mind, like, yeah, I want to play that one next, because I'm also like a variety gamer per se, where I play, I've talked about this before, but I play literally every genre. I play puzzle games, I play talking sims, visual novels, FPS games, third-person shooters, platformers, like literally everything, like city building simulators even. I'm just very open-minded. I love video games. There's literally not a single genre that I won't play. So for me, I guess it kind of just helps make it easier to be like, all right, well, I just played a first-person shooter. Let's go play like a tactical RPG or a strategy RPG, or go play a visual novel or something, you know what I mean? And plus I have a variety of systems I play on. I play from anything from, like, you know, the original Atari up to, like, you know, modern consoles. So not only do I have, like, the mainline consoles from all those years, but I also have, like, you know, some of the more, like, niche ones per se, whether that be, like, consoles or handhelds that I can jump to as well, like the Neo Geo Pocket, for example. As they say, variety is the spice of life, and I just have a whole lot of variety to a point where it's like, hey, you know, for whatever mood I'm specifically in, I'll definitely be able to find a system and game to fit that mood. The next part of the thing also says, and are you going to play the new Elden Ring DLC? I've been waiting for the video to drop, and this is referring back to what I was talking about earlier in the video. I'm not making any videos on the Elden Ring DLC. I'm sorry, the community was just I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of amazing people in the community that I got to meet and interact with during my time making Elden Ring content, but no, it was just, there was so much negative energy on the channel, and furthermore, I don't care when people, you know, bring that negative energy to me, whether they call me names or they're mean to me, but it got to a point of where it was flooding into my Discord server and my YouTube comment section, and I was literally watching people get into fights over, like, you know, just like the Toxic Souls drama that it just, I just... Why do y'all do that? And again, it's one of those things where I don't mind if people want to come at me with that toxicity, because, I mean, I know better than to actually get emotionally affected by things I see online, just because, you know, obviously everything online is just a waste of time. But when it starts affecting the other folks in my community that are, you know, that aren't actually toxic like that, then yeah, that's just kind of where I draw the line. I'm like, you know what, I don't like having all this negative energy kind of surrounding everything as is, so I'm sorry, I gotta pass on that one. I had a lot of fun playing the DLC, though. The next question comes from Miggle Q Smith, who asks, do you consider a glove socks for hands or a sock gloves for feet? I actually consider them to be neither. So gloves are defined as being like, you know, something that goes around your hands, whereas socks are something that go on your feet. So I feel like in that stance, they're kind of like, you know, they're both just kind of their own thing for their own specific appendages. But if I really had to truly answer this, I would say that it goes either way. I think a glove could be considered socks for hands, and I think socks could be considered gloves for feet, because for all I know, one day humans could evolve to where our arms are where our legs are, and our legs are where our arms are, and in that case, what's the difference? The last question comes from my mother, who asks, what advice would you give your younger siblings that you wish you knew before growing up into an adult? This one is easy for me. Well, there's a couple of things I could say, but I'll just kind of sum it up as simply as I can with as minimal rambling as I can, you know. I mean, if you watch the video up to this point, you can obviously tell I'm terrible at that. But it is to be humble, be thankful, and be grateful. Any day could be our last, any moment could be our last. I could flop over and die of an extreme heart attack, or my lungs could collapse right now, and that would just kind of be that. We literally don't know what's gonna happen to any of us at literally any time, so just always be grateful that the great Lord above has given you the privilege to continue to live for each second that you're able to live. Be thankful for everything that you have, no matter how much or how small, and be humble, you know, never get too full of yourself, always be considerate of those around you, and, you know, never put yourself above anybody else. Always remember that we're all humans, and in the great Lord's eyes, we're all just, you know, brothers and sisters trying to traverse our way through this thing called life. So again, be humble, be thankful, and be grateful. And if there's any other advice I could give to my younger siblings, stay single. Trust me. 5 years single right here. Happiest I've ever been. But anyway, that's all the questions that I got this week. I'm not even gonna lie, like, some days, I don't know what it is, I think it's something with my ADHD, or sometimes my mouth works faster than my brain, so there was, like, an extra bit of rambling happening today, but there was also a lot of, like, extra stuttering that I'm gonna have to try to edit out, so I apologize if any of that really makes it into the video. Again, I can't help it, my ADHD brain is going a little crazy today. It sometimes makes it a little hard to exist when it's going as hard as it is today, but it's okay. My OCD's also been pretty extravagant today as well, so they're clashing pretty hard, and it's just the whole thing. But anyway, again, as always, if you want to be featured in the next Q&A, either just join the Discord server or keep your eyes posted over on the community tab. I always try to post up about a week in advance just so you guys have enough time to get your questions in. But anyway, as always, massive shout out to all the Patreons and channel members seeking on the low ball tier, and big shout out to all in the big ball tier. My last name is Animated, and the big shout out on G2 Run and some of the cheese girl. Thank you guys so much, guys. They're little legends. I love you. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.